The year after James left was the hardest of Lena's life. The small town of Millbrook, once a place of shared dreams, now felt like a lonely stage. For a single mother with no husband, no savings, and 2 small children, it was merciless. Her days began before the sun, the soft tick-tock of her old alarm clock, the only sound in the pre-dawn stillness. She worked at Mrs. Donnelly's diner, a place filled with the clatter of plates and the smell of coffee. She'd wipe tables and wash dishes until her hands were raw, cracked from the constant cycle of soap and heat. Evenings brought no rest. By the dim glow of a single lamp, she'd mend clothes for neighbors, her needle flickering like a tiny star in the dark. Through it all, her children, Clara and Tommy, never saw her cry. When they laughed, her own laughter would echo theirs, a melody she willed into existence. When they asked for new shoes, her voice was always steady, promising, "We'll get them soon, baby," even when soon felt like a lifetime away. One crisp autumn afternoon, walking home from the diner, the chill in the air seemed to seep right into her bones. In the distance, a small heart-wrenching scene unfolded. Her little boy, Tommy, sat on their porch steps, clutching a torn lunch bag. Clara was beside him, her small shoulders shaking with sobs. Lena's purse dropped to the ground as she ran, her heart pounding against her ribs. "What happened?" she asked, her voice breathless. Clara's words came out in a sniffle. "Some kids said, Daddy left because we were bad." The world stopped. The wind died down, the crickets fell silent, and the sun seemed to hide behind the clouds. For a moment, Lena couldn't breathe. Then, she knelt, pulling both children into a tight embrace, her warmth a shield against the world's casual cruelty. She whispered, her voice fierce and low, "Listen to me. Your father leaving was his choice. It had nothing to do with you. You are the best thing that ever happened to me." Tommy looked up, his young face a canvas of confusion. "Then why are you sad, Mama?" Her voice trembled, just for a second. "Because I miss the way things were. But sometimes, love changes, and when it does," she said, looking from one child to the other, "we just have to love harder." That night, she broke the routine. Pancakes for dinner, their absolute favorite. She turned on the small radio by the counter, and as a cheerful tune filled the small kitchen, they danced, barefoot on the linoleum floor. In that moment, their shared laughter chased away every shadow, filling every empty space in the house. Weeks melted into months. Lena's sewing, once just a way to make ends meet, began to flourish. Word of her skills spread through Millbrook. People spoke of her fine stitching, how she could mend a torn coat so perfectly it looked brand new. Soon, women began stopping by not just for repairs, but for company. They'd sit at her kitchen table, sipping tea while she worked, sharing their own stories of love, loss, and the quiet struggles of life. Lena rarely spoke of her own pain, but her quiet strength became a source of comfort for others. "Ask Lena," they'd say. "She's been through worse, and she still smiles." But the nights were a different story. After the children were tucked into bed, the silence of the house would press in. On some evenings, she would pull a small wooden box from under her bed. Inside were letters from James, artifacts from a different life. They were old, from the early years, filled with promises of a future that never arrived. She would read them slowly, her fingers tracing the familiar handwriting, then carefully fold them away. The ache in her heart wasn't anger anymore. It was a quiet acceptance that some love stories just end, without a final chapter, without a reason that makes sense. She refused to let bitterness take root. Instead, she poured every ounce of her being into her children. She taught Clara to find solace in poetry, and she taught Tommy to fix old radios, passing on the same patient lessons her own father had once taught her. She was building a new world for them, brick by loving brick. One brilliant Sunday morning, sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Clara came running in, waving a note from school. She had won first place in her writing contest. The title of her essay was "My Mother, My Hero." Lena's hands shook slightly as she took the paper. She read the words, each one landing softly in her heart. "My mother is not a queen or a doctor or someone on TV. She's just my mum, but she works harder than anyone I know. When I grow up, I want to be just like her kind, brave and strong." Tears, hot and unexpected, streamed down her face. For the first time in years, she cried. Not tears of pain or loss, but of overwhelming pride. She realized that her silent battles, her sleepless nights, her endless sacrifices, they hadn't gone unnoticed. Her children saw her. They saw her strength. They felt her love, and that, she knew with a certainty that settled deep in her soul, was worth more than anything life could ever take away. That evening, she stood by the window, watching the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The pond in the distance shimmered, and a sense of calm settled over the world. And over her, she whispered to the fading light, "I may have lost a partner, but I never lost my purpose." As fireflies began to flicker across the yard, tiny sparks in the growing dusk, Lena smiled. It was a real smile, one that reached her eyes, born not just of happiness, but of victory. Because through it, all the heartbreak, the hunger, the crushing loneliness, she had done the impossible. She had kept love alive. Thank you so much for joining me for this chapter. If this story touched your heart, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more. We'll see you again soon.